What's going on, guys? I am Toxic Jordan. Welcome back to the channel. So today we're just going to be diving in and doing a little discussion about the current meta of Dokkan Battle and just kind of how a lot of the community is feeling about Dokkan Battle and how I feel about Dokkan Battle currently. So what sparked this is, I mean, there has been a lot of talk in the community. There have been some heavy opinions going around about, you know, a lot of the way that they're building kits, you know, in recent days, and a lot of their choices for new Dokkan Fests and things like that. People have had, you know, quite a bit to say about it. And somebody actually left this really long comment on one of my most recent videos. So I did want to make a video addressing it because they had some decent points in here. And so I just kind of wanted to use this comment and my response to it as a bit of a basis for the video. But I've got a few other web pages pulled up that I'm going to show you guys, and just some hot topics I wanted to, you know, to point out and note on. So let's start by diving into this comment here. So this person, review for the tube 6485, shout out to them, says, "I'm sorry, but I actually love this unit." They're referring to the brand new Android 17 and Hellfighter 17 Dokkan Fest. So they love the units. They are not bad at all. They just need a team surrounding them better. Now, this is a really good point. This is something that I feel like not enough people point out. It is a really, really fair thing that most units that get dropped into the game, you know, minute one, they are a really, really good unit. If you look at their overall stats, if you look at their maximum potential, they usually do look very, very good, with exception of units like, I don't know, Raditz or something, right? Who actually just looks trash on release. That's a very rare case scenario, but it's because of the units that get released around them or not, which is usually what determines whether they are going to look good in the game or not. So this is absolutely a correct comment. They are a good unit. It's just, it sucks that the banner unit that came out alongside them is complete trash, and you know, they are on some niche teams that just need help overall. So it doesn't help them shine very much, right? So that is a very, very valid point. Okay, it says, and actually, the unit will be one of the best in the game when we do get longer events. So people need to stop thinking about right now and also think about the future. Okay, so yes and no. I can see the argument for this. I mean, definitely, this is the kind of unit that will thrive in long-form content. So, you know, that is a very common thing with a lot of units nowadays, because it is very, very, you know, it's very common in, like, the modern day character building that, you know, Akatsuki goes through, and they choose to make all of these units need to, like, take hits in order to build up their defense or build up damage reduction and stuff. And I feel like on a lot of the strong, powerful, like, meta teams, most of the strongest units on those teams have those abilities where you have to take hits in order to build up. Now, that implies that these units would be better in long-form content, because if you give them more and more turns to take all the hits to build up their passives, then they are going to look better towards the end of those fights. So saying that, you know, oh, once we get longer-form content, this unit is going to be amazing, so people need to stop trashing on it. Well, that's true for every unit in the game right now. That's how they're building these units. The way that Dokkan has, quote-unquote, artificially created difficulty, you know, or created like artificial difficulty in these events, is they've made events that are really, really hard out the gate and given us very little units that are good defensively out the gate, right? A lot of units do have to suffer in the beginning of these fights in order to become good. You know, and so naturally what people are hunting for are those units that are going to be really, really good out the gate, because that's what the hardest content in the game right now calls for. So, you know, yes and no to this last comment. Okay, so I feel they are solid. They are a solid unit, and I've had some good luck with them. I've also pulled the androids, Texel, they were just kind of sharing with me some of their goals going toward anniversary and stuff. Let's see, wants Frieza. Okay, so I think the point they were trying to make here, right here, people have forgotten what the game is about, in their opinion. You don't have to want or like units that are only top 20 in the game. You can want a unit just to have or collect. I remember when we just wanted all of the units and max them out. That's what it's really about. Too much complaining now from too many people. There are complainers The complainers are the ones with half their box full with units that aren't even awakened or anything. Probably referring to, like, right, a lot of the crappier banner units and such that don't really have much use, or some of the more outdated sub-EZAs and stuff that really don't have much use. And that is true, right? There are a lot of people that don't go for completion. And I touch on this, you know, down here in my response, but you know, something to mention is that there are different goals from different people. Everybody has a different idea of what Dokkan Battle is, and you know, so it is very true that there are some people out there that are very, very focused on endgame content. They are very, very focused on what the strongest units in the game are, and they're only comparing every new unit to the other strongest units in the game currently, and how that affects the most current, like, meta relevant content. Well, because this game is not like an esports competitive game or anything, those kind of mentalities are kind of antiquated line of thinking for this game. They're not really relevant, right? So this is a good point that there's more to this game, right? There's animations, and there's OSTs, and there's just people's favorite characters that they like, right? There are so many people that play this game, myself included, because they're starving for Dragon Ball content. We haven't had an anime in 5 years, right? And obviously, like, there was a ton of hype around when the superhero movie came out, because Dragon Ball fans had something new to reach toward. That's a big part of why Dragon Ball games in general, with Fighters and some of the Xenoverse franchises and Kakarot and stuff, and Legends, are all so popular, because Dragon Ball fans are starving, right? So I don't care what the unit is that comes into the game. I'm just excited to see all the new units, right? Like with the Dr. Wheelo thing. It does suck that Dr. Wheelo wasn't like the best character, that, you know, and they dropped him as this shitty Prime Battle LR that doesn't really have much use to be used. I'm still really excited that there's finally a Dr. Wheelo in the game. You know, it's a cool thing to me, right? And like, again, something else that I touch on down here is the LR Bulma release, that so many people were like, who wants a Bulma? Like, who cares about Bulma? Everybody just wants to see Vegito Blue and stuff. I'm like, well, isn't she one of the most hyped characters in the franchise? I don't understand. Like, I mean, Bulma is like, aside from like Goku, kind of the backbone of the series, in my opinion. She provides a ton of comic relief. She provides a huge portion of the waifu aspect for people that are into the anime for those type of reasons. Like, I remember when we went and saw the superhero movie in theaters, and a few of probably 3 different portions of the movie where the entire crowd was like audible, whether they were laughing or awing or hooting and hollering, and for some reason were moments where Bulma was on screen. So I'm like, she's one of the most hyped characters in the franchise. I don't understand why people wouldn't be absolutely, like, you know, like, awestruck to see her be released as an LR in the game. I've been saying for a while now, I want to see more Bulma representation, because we have all these Bulma Youth cards. Even the new LR Bulma is a Bulma Youth, but we don't really have much representation from Bulma in Super or Bulma in the Dragon Ball Z, you know, universe. So I think there's much more that they could do with those kind of characters. But anyway, moving on here. Okay, so yeah, people who haven't awakened the units in their box acting like they have nothing to do. Yeah, so complaining about the limited amount of content is definitely a thing. But again, these are people who pigeonhole themselves to just caring about endgame content. So if they release Red Zone Broly, and we're sitting here waiting for all this other content, they throw out some Super Battle Road stages, they throw out Infinite Dragon Ball History, they throw out some EZAs, they're rolling their eyes at all of this stuff because it's not as hard as the hardest stage in the game. Some people just want every new content that comes out to be harder than the previous stuff that came out before it, and that's just not the case. That's just not the way it's going to run, right? That's not how games like this work. They're going to sit at the same level for a little while, let a lot of the different categories and stuff catch up to the point where they're able to take on the hardest content in the game, and then they'll move it up once the game has kind of caught up. But that does mean that the first few categories that they make that, you know, are on these 200% leader skills that are amazing for all this content are going to just be over busted and just be able to clear everything with ease for a very long time, right? That's just kind of the nature of the game. Okay, so not everybody is in the truth situation and shouldn't think of the game the way he does since he's already done. So I guess maybe I don't know about this. I'm not sure how long this player has been playing Dokkan Battle, and whether they are somebody who has their account fully finished, but I know that there is a large portion of the community that has been playing this game for 5+ years and definitely has every stage in the game complete, right? And has like most, if not all of the missions done. Like I know that there are quite a few players out there who are just messing around with link leveling and farming up SSR copies of units and stuff and messing with power level because they are done with the game. So I think I'm going to ixnay this part of their comment. I think maybe this is a bit of an uneducated statement. I think a lot of the people that are complaining about the lack of content in Celebrations are people that do have most of the content in the game finished, right? And also, this isn't really a fair statement to the truth, because you mentioned the truth's situation, but he doesn't think of the game that way. He is one of the biggest advocates defending these celebrations, saying that these celebrations are amazing and there's a ton of content, right? Lately he's been giving some of his feedback toward Bandai about their release schedule, because it's been a bit poo-poo, where we've had dead weeks and then a ton of content all at once and stuff. But when he looks at the celebrations overall, he is willing to admit that they're giving us a lot of interesting content. They're giving us different types of content that's fun and fresh. They're giving us a lot of content, enough content. Granted, he always comes at it with the attitude of like, yeah, they could always do more, which I definitely agree with. It would be easy for them to add missions to a lot of existing events, and that is something that a lot of people are wanting them to do more. So that is a valid point. But overall, he definitely doesn't think of the game this same way, that, complaining that, that there isn't enough content or anything like that, right? Okay, so he says this whole every team and every unit needs to beat Cell Max is getting ridiculous, because that's just not the case or true at all. The game was way more fun when people would just enjoy playing. We didn't need to complain or need everything to beat everything. So, I mean, yeah, again, this kind of goes back to the end game content subject of people that just care about the end game content. But yeah, there are a lot of other places to use these units, right, in the game. There's easy A stages and things like this. Okay, so basically, I like that I started a JP account a little less than a year ago and basically farmed it from the ground up, and I'm now pretty much done with most of the free-to-play content in the game, and I've farmed like 200 of every Dokkan medal, and I have all the easy A's finished, and I'm like well on my way to having I'm almost done farming all the Prime Battle LRs and stuff. So I have very recently gone through all the content in the game and went and completed all the challenge content and all the Super Battle Road stages and stuff. So I do understand that there is a large viability for most of the units in the game, right? Probably the top 300 units in the game, you're going to see some viability for, because there are so many different content. There's so much different content in the game, so many different stages that have different, missions where you're required to use different characters or different categories or whatever. So there is different places to use a lot of these different units, right? So I definitely do agree with this, that not every unit needs to be able to beat Cell Max and stuff, because there is use for these other characters. The problem becomes when you are like some of these longtime players who have completed all the content already. Okay, you guys even see this on my YouTube channel. There are units that I make summoning videos for. I summon for them, I awaken them, and I link level 10 them, and then they sit in my box and I never use them again, because I'm already done with all the hard content. So other than just fooling around and playing around for fun and re-beating a lot of the stages I've already beaten, I have no reason to use those units, so they just sit. Right? And I use the new Dokkan Fest 17 and Hellfighter 17 on some of the new Legendary Goku event missions that they gave us in this celebration. And beyond that, I'm probably never going to use them again, because there's not going to really be a call to, a need to use them. So yeah, that's why I say it's definitely wise for them to probably start throwing out more missions for previous events. That way there would be a reason to go and use some of these different characters that aren't super meta relevant, because if they were doing a celebration where the brand new units are these Inhuman Deeds, Join Forces cards, whatever, then go throw a Namekian's mission at something. Go throw a Savior's mission at something, random categories that we haven't necessarily gotten a ton of buffs for recently, and then it'll force people to go dig back into their box and use some of those units that are maybe the 150th best unit in the game or the 200th best unit in the game as a viable unit on that team, because there isn't brand new meta relevant options for whatever mission they're giving us. So I think they definitely could do things like that. Okay, so before we get into the next portion of this video, we're going to switch over to another piece here. Let me make sure I got all of my points out about this. So let me just read through my response. Probably going to be a little repetitive, but here we go. Everyone's got different goals when it comes to games like this. That's kind of the beauty of it, in my opinion. I try my best to support all people's viewpoints on different characters. So that is very true. I definitely agree that... that the game can be played multiple different ways. So I don't poo-poo those people who go and give all their units maximum critical hit because they think it's important to maximize all the damage that you do in these events, and they don't really care about defensive capability or dodging capability. I applaud them because they show screenshots of being able to clear these events, and it works. It is a viable strategy to go all in on offense and hope that your units can just plow through the enemies before you take a hit. That is a way that this game works. That is a way that certain people play, and it is effective. However, it's also effective to load up on full dodge with all your characters and then just sit there and try and dodge every single attack until you eventually, chip the enemy's health away to where they're depleted. That's another viable strategy, right? So when it comes to a lot of the builds for these cards and people having these different opinions about them, I like to let people have their opinions because it is very, very valid for someone to think that the new Dokkan Fest Android 17 card sucks because he's not good turn one of the Cell Max fight when you want him to be, and he doesn't, his like awakening is too late into the fight, and then he ends up getting clapped on the final stage or whatever. For people who value endgame content, that's a valid opinion. For people like me that think this unit has some viability in other content, then I would say he's actually a decent unit, right? And that maybe his team just sucks. So there's definitely room for different viewpoints. There is no set in stone. There is no right and wrong with these games, right? I think it just depends how you perceive the game. I can agree that players who are hyper-focused on endgame content are naturally going to have an overall more frustrating experience because not every unit will be viable for those events. So there is a lot of times where these players are going to be expecting things from Dokkan that it is not going to deliver because they're ignoring a large portion of what the game has to offer, right? They're just one small portion of this. So imagine, let's say, like, you're in a classroom full of people, and the teacher has basically made this sheet where everybody can fill out their favorite movie and turn it in. And at some point throughout the semester, they're going to play your favorite movie in class, and you'll be able to watch the movie. But the same is going to be true for everyone else's favorite movie. So, on the day where they play a black and white movie from the 1920s and you're not into that because you like Fast and Furious, and you're sitting here complaining about it because, they're not good, right? It's just about how you perceive the game because somebody else is having an absolute blast watching Marilyn Monroe in black and white, right? That's just not your niche. And I feel like the same thing happens with these units that get released. People just don't realize that the unit wasn't released for them. It wasn't released for the type of content that they enjoy in-game. But some people are diehard GT fans and absolutely love that this new Dokkan Fest 17 came out, and they went and spent money on it, and it works for them, right? So it's really all about your own perception of the game. So for me, a good point is, as someone who is simply a longtime enjoyer of the Dragon Ball franchise, and I am a chronic completionist with every game that I play, I enjoy every new unit that gets released. Even if they suck, they still potentially have great animations, great OSTs, and it's a new unit that I get to link level, a new unit that I get to farm up and add to my collection, and look pretty in my box. So yeah, I definitely think there is some value to every single thing that they release in this game. And I think it's important that the community maintain a positive attitude about these things. That is another important point here, because, when it's really, really hard for game developers to continue to make a positive experience and a great game environment when people just only ever shit on everything they do. So if they think that they have these good ideas that are these new innovative things, and then they release them, and then people are still just complaining, if they're used to people only complaining every time they do anything, they're going to stop listening to the complaints because they're not going to take them as valid and wholesome and use them as constructive. They're just going to see this toxic community that poo-poos on everything they do. So we have to kind of understand where, like, Dokkan is coming from with these things sometimes, so that we're not so critical, so unnecessarily critical of them, I guess, is a point here. So, that being said, my biggest pet peeve right now is when people get upset at the specific characters that they release, especially before they even see the kits or anything. I know a lot of people were recently upset about the Bulma, but that's odd to me. So as I mentioned earlier, isn't she one of the most iconic characters in the franchise, right? Wouldn't that be hype, even if she doesn't shoot big ki blasts and get blue hair? So these are the people that are truly missing out on the fun that Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle has to offer, I think. So yeah, the people that are only in this for the I feel bad for those kind of people that are, pigeonholing themselves to the shonen anime style and just wanting to see the warriors battling it out and not caring about like a lot of the other niche stuff that Dragon Ball has to offer. Because, Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball anime, was like a comedy as much as it was an action adventure, right? And I think that the modern version of Dragon Ball has adapted a lot of the same tropes as other animes, having, love interest and emotional struggle and comedic relief and all of these things, right? And big anime titties, like whatever. There's more to enjoy about Dokkan than just these banger super attacks and these LR Gojitas and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of my biggest take on the community's viewpoint on the game versus mine and this gentleman's or gentle ladies here. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to do, so something that I did here was I pulled up the timelines of the 7th anniversary and the 8th anniversary. Rather, the 7th year of the game and the 8th year of the game. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the 7th year, and then we'll take a look at the 8th year. I had to put them in separate tabs here, just to get my computer to handle having this many web pages open at the same time. Okay, so we're going to do a brief run through. What I want you to pay attention to is essentially the hype level of this character. So there have been a lot of people that have been complaining about like the downfall of the releases, right? And there are a lot of people who have the genuine opinion that that Dokkan has been flopping on a lot of these releases. So we're going to briefly take note of how powerful that unit was on release, and then we're also going to take a bigger note of how hype the community thought that release was. Make sense? So now these are in the order that they released on JP. The reason I felt it was important to do that is because that's the order that they were originally released to the community and announced to the community, right? Because even before they were released on global players knew of their existence, and once the unit is originally released on JP, then it becomes a part of the Dokkan Battle franchise, and that's when people develop their opinions about it, based on whatever comes before and after it. So we will be looking at the JP timeline of events here. If you end up confused, that's why. Okay, so starting at the beginning of the 7th anniversary, we had the LR Gods and the LR Super Saiyan 4s. Absolutely banger units, right? Could not have been bigger wins. They were performing very, very well, and they were super, super hype. So that is great for them. And then for part 2 of the 7th anniversary, we had the fated duo of Vegeta and Goku, the Saiyan Saga LRs here. Again, very, very hype releases. People were very excited for these. The animations were insane. They did not end up performing quite as well. They have aged out of the meta a little bit, but on release, they were very, very impressive. And in fact, some of the most impressive Part 2 LRs from any anniversary celebration in history. So definitely, the 7th anniversary was an absolute win. Now, Captain Ginyu was released, and people were so sad. People hated it. No one wanted Captain Ginyu, except Goresh. He was like the one person who was happy that that Dokkan Fest Ginyu got released. Everyone else was like, absolutely not, right? But he was amazing. He was one of the best units in the game, and for a long time, the Ginyu team itself could just destroy any of the content in the game. And I'm pretty sure that that's still true. The Ginyu Force team can no-item any event in the game with relative ease. So yeah, like, it doesn't matter that people didn't think it was hype. It was an amazing release. Awesome. Good to go. Majin Vegeta was released for Golden Week. Absolutely hype. Amazing unit. Awesome. Okay, Raditz, biggest fail in history. We all know how this one went. Obviously, it was an unhype release that completely flopped in power as well. The Part 2 Yellow Coin LR for Raditz, kind of similar, not very hype, and was strong on release, but has since been discovered to be mid. Okay, so then the Dual Dokkan Fest Cell and transforming Goku, insanely hype, insanely powerful, right? The Part 2 Yellow Coin LR, insanely hype, insanely powerful. Then we had the ROF Blue Celebration. Okay, so a bit of a flop here for them. Again, definitely hype, because we are talking about Super Saiyan Blues. Like, hello, it doesn't get more hype than this, right? Other than fusing them together. So definitely hype, they just weren't that powerful, and people were very, very upset about this celebration, I will note. Which doesn't seem fair, because a lot of the backlash to the community has been about not having hype releases. This is a hype release. I don't care what you say about it. You can be mad that this unit isn't quite as powerful as you'd want them to be. This is a hype character. You can't deny that. And then when the Part 2 clapped back with this guy, this is insanely hype. Well, okay, I have to actually pause on that for myself, because I know that I am a bigger Frieza fan than the Dragon Ball community. I know that Golden Frieza is not accepted great in the community, and that, you know, enemies like Broly and stuff are seen as much better, and that Frieza is one of the less liked villains in the series, which to me is weird, because it's my favorite villain, personally. So, I was very hype on Golden Frieza, but I could understand how if the community wasn't. Regardless of that, this is an insane character, right? So then moving on to the Tanabata celebration, we had the Vegeta and Trunks, again, insanely hype, best unit in the game on release, and in fact, a lot of the units since the 7th anniversary had been following that trend. And then we had Fusion Zamasu, again, another, I think, pretty hype release that was done very well for the villain side of things. People were still very hype about it. So yeah, I would say other than the Raditz, like, area, we had a lot of hype following the first half of 2022 in, you know, the 7th year of the game's lifespan. There was definitely a lot of hype. They were on point for all of that, I'll say, with Raditz being the main exception there. And then we had Pan. Now, this was the next point where there was a huge downshift, and everyone was super upset about the release. No one wanted the Dokkan Fest Pan. Again, when you watch the Dragon Ball superhero movie, a few of the biggest hype moments on screen are when Pan shows up, when Pan does something, when Pan says something. She's one of the most hyped characters in that movie. How can you not like Pan? She's insane. She's awesome, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me that people don't like a release like this. Again, not the most powerful 200% release that we've had, and has quickly fallen off. So yeah, this was, I guess, another flop time, but I don't think that Dokkan necessarily did a bad job here. I just think that people didn't like it. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, she hasn't proven to be the most amazing release thus far, but she is also one of the strongest Slot 1 units to date. And that's like what all of the hardest content is calling for, and that's the reason why people aren't hype on units like the new Dokkan Fest 17, because he's not super strong in Slot 1 out the gates. But this Pan is. She's a Slot 1 tank. So I don't understand. Like people are very, very contradictory in the things that they're complaining about. It's like they want every single unit to be a super hype named character with a indestructible kit, and, you know, and then bada bing, bada boom, and then they'll be happy. And it's like, not every single release is going to be like that. It would be boring. The game would be super annoying if you could only run a Pure Saiyans team and every single other team in the game just sucked because they never released anything hype for it, right? I don't think that that is good for the health of the game at all. Okay, so that's Pan. And then we move into the Worldwide Download Celebration, which obviously had amazing releases. This was the biggest, hypest celebration in history, in my opinion. So yeah, obviously Part 1 and Part 2 were absolutely amazing for that. With the inception of the Carnival LRs here, that was, you know, a huge W for Dokkan. Even though people didn't like the fact that they had to summon on an extra banner, I think it is well worth that sacrifice, just to have these amazing units in the game, for sure. And then following that up, we had the Path to Power Kid Goku, one of the more hype celebrations of the 7th year, indeed. Definitely one of the best Dokkan Fest units that has ever been released. And again, super hype because it is a Goku card. And then after that, we go into the movie celebration, and we got the Gammas. Again, insanely hype characters that were insanely strong. So we've just been going really, really strong for the 7th year here. Then we move into the Bardock celebration, which takes a little bit of a step down. Now, only a little bit, right? Because this is still a pretty strong Dokkan Fest release. Now, it was very, very hard to compete with some of this post, worldwide download celebration content and the Gammas and Path to Power Kid Goku, those units were all so insane that it didn't really matter what they released as we got into, October, and we started getting out of the, the hype of the worldwide download celebration and the anniversary and stuff. Now we were just talking about going back into the kind of the normal time. So this unit was never going to look amazing, right? If this was the unit that released, right before the anniversary. So if it's like, this unit releases and then anniversaries right after, everyone would have been pining because they're like, no, we need to summon for this guy. He's so good. Oh my God, we can't skip him. Why would they release him right before anniversary? Dokkan Like, everyone would have been so upset. But the fact that he followed up the Gammas, everyone was like, he's mid. Right? And it's like, that's not really the way it was. This is a very, very good character. He just wasn't the best in the game because of what had released right before him. But also, it's a Bardock, so hype unit. It's a Saiyan, right? Then, after that, we had the Yamcha release. Now, again, some people would say this is the least hype Dokkan release in all of history because it's Yamcha, right? Like, some people just absolutely are not fans and don't want to see love for any of these minor characters in the game. I say at this point in the game, we're 8 years in. Give every single character a Dokkan Fest. Why not? I'm honestly pissed that they repeated Dokkan Fest Turles. I don't think that they should be repeating Dokkan Fest before every single named character in the game gets a Dokkan Fest. I think that's what they should do. Dokkan Fest Cell Jr. before we get any more repeats of any Gokus or anything like that. Please. But yeah, so the fact that this guy himself was really, really good, and his team that he introduced was absolutely insane. That was another thing with Bardock's team that I didn't mention, is that Bardock's team is actually really good, right? So that helped out this release a lot, and I feel like this was decently received. So I guess I will have to give the community a bit of a pass on this one, because they could have been a lot more malicious about the Yamcha release. But I think the fact that his kit worked well and his team was amazing, and a lot of the other content that came out around the same time was able to buff his team and make him a fun release to play, people were very hype on this character for sure. Then we got another Carnival LR here, the Hachiyak movie Super Saiyan Goku. Though it was the 40 millionth Super Saiyan Goku they gave us this year, is still a really, really solid unit that people were hype on and loved. And then to finish off the 7th year of the game, we got the finale of the movie celebration in the Orange Piccolo and Beast Gohan. Now, obviously, these were insanely hype, probably the most hype time in Dokkan history, right? Just for the entirety of the game, with this being a dual celebration on both global and JP at the same time. Now, I know people were bummed about, the way that they had flopped the Beast Gohan portion of the kit and only doing the active skill and stuff. And obviously there was some huge controversy based on people's expectations versus what reality brought us. But overall, this was insanely hyped. These are really strong characters, and they definitely closed out the 7th year in a good and solid way. So that is the 7th year celebration. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the 8th year. Where are we at here? The 8th year celebration, or the 8th year of the game so far, right? Because we're only halfway through that. That started in January, and we're now into June. So just to make a little bit of a comparison here, I didn't previously go through this. That run through on all of those 7th year units was me doing that for the first time right there. So I kind of just now was able to collect some of my thoughts about how good the year was overall. So I guess I'm just going to be paying attention to these releases, and then we'll make some opinions about whether they've been doing better in the 8th year, worse in the 8th year, or about the same. Okay, so starting out with the 8th year anniversary LRs themselves, I would say they are not quite as hype or as powerful as the 7th anniversary LRs. Now this guy, okay, so the hype, for sure, not as good, right? Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta, you can't make a celebration more hype than that. There's no way that a Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta, and then this anything from GT was going to top that, right? So the hype already not as good. And then if we're talking about the power of these units, this is probably still the best unit in the game to date, maybe besides the LR Bulma. But this is definitely, like, There's no discussion. He's absolutely top 3, no matter who you are. That he's top 3. You can't argue against that. So this is definitely, power-wise, a very, very strong unit, right? And they did give us the new mechanics, which they obviously give a new mechanic with every single anniversary units. But having the standby skill with the Spirit Bomb and the Revive and all of that, definitely an amazing kit for this unit. So they started off the year strong with this one. This guy is a bit of a flop because of the way that the endgame content works, where it's really, really difficult out the gates, and they made this guy absolutely suck turn 1 and need to take a long time to be good. This was a flop, for sure. So I would say overall, the 7th Anniversary Part 1 was better than the 8th Anniversary Part 1. Then we get into the Part 2. Now, I would say the 8th Anniversary Part 2, the hype, way, way through the floor. Because these second, Part 2 LRs were received horribly. People just did not care, right? Being the Dragon Ball Z opening LR and then the Dragon Ball Z Kai opening LR. Yeah, I think people just didn't care, which is totally fine. And for me, like, I guess the hype is never a question, right? Because like I mentioned before in the video, I just like all of the new content that comes out. Their kits are really, really impressive, though. I do like these units. They're very, very strong, dependable defensive units. So I think that power-wise, they are actually better than the 7th Anniversary Part 2s. So we definitely have that to go for. But they were not well received, even though they're powerful, because there was no hype behind them. So then, after the anniversary, we move right into the Dokkan Fest 17 and 17 celebration. People were very, very upset about this one. Obviously, no hype behind it. And then also the fact that they flopped the, the Dr. Mayu and Jiro banner unit, just kind of screwed this unit over even more because they didn't really have an amazing team or an awesome place to run them. And then obviously they weren't built for any of the relevant content that we have in game. So it was kind of an L on all accounts from Dokkan. Then we move into Saiyan Day, and we get the new Dokkan Fest God Goku. Now, we're on an upswing again, right? Because this was an insane celebration, awesome release, one of the most hype things of the 8th year, probably as hype, if not more hype, than the 8th anniversary celebration itself, right? People absolutely loved what was going on with this guy, and he is definitely one of the strongest Dokkan Fests that they've released to date, right? So Dokkan W here. Then we get into the Kale celebration, and now we're falling down a little bit again, because we're talking somewhat irrelevant teams, and basically completely irrelevant unit because of because of depending on the Universe 6 category allies, which is a dead team. So they really, really did hurt this Kale, just with failing on the Dokkan Fest Frost that they brought out alongside him, and not making... And because Frost was basically unrunnable, and a lot of the other Universe 6 cards and Universe Survival Saga cards in general are really, really outdated, we needed something else super strong to come along with this Kale, because this Kale wasn't built as like a slot 1 unit. We needed a strong slot 1 unit to go alongside them. And then when the LR Kale and Caulifla got their Easy A, them also not being a slot 1 unit, just really, really hurts this Kale and hurt the celebration and this Dokkan Fest as a whole, right? But that being said, it is a Saiyan. It's a Super Saiyan. So you really can't say it's not hype, though I know that the community has always received the Universe 6 girls horribly. People generally don't think they're hype, which, again, I don't understand. I think it's a really, really cool addition to the series and is able to, give them so much more freedom to play around with the concept of Saiyans and what Saiyans are capable of doing. They brought back hype for Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 2 with Kaba and Caulifla and Kale, right? They never would have been able to have hype for those transformations again if we just had the original batch of Saiyans that we're stuck with. So, yeah, I definitely think that these girls are hype, but the community doesn't, so this was an L celebration. And then the part 2 for that celebration, which was already horrible enough, we get a boo. This needed to be like a Yellow Coin LR hit, or something from the Universe Survival Saga at least, but preferably something specifically from Universe 6. That would have helped out that Kale celebration so much, and the Kale herself, and I think that would have made people receive that card a lot better, right? But instead, now we have a fail in the Kale, and then we have a fail in the Boo, because no one cared about this card. Why did we need him? Who's running Heavenly Events or Majin Buu Saga right now? Like, this is not a card that we needed. This wasn't like a relevant release to have at all. Now, the reason he did come out is because of Transformation Boost, and Kale being a Transformation Boost leader, which is all fine and good, and a lot of people do like to come to Kale's defense and say, well, she's a Transformation Boost leader, so, she, you know, like, people say her team's irrelevant, but she's a Transformation Boost leader. But the problem is, we've been through this time and time again with these cards in Dokkan. If they're a unit that leads a category, and they have a bunch of restrictions in their passive for the specific type of units that need to be run with them, that causes problems, because now you're restricting the team build heavily, so you can't just throw her on as a lead and then throw a bunch of random Transformation Boost cards on the team, because now you have a leader and a friend leader that are both going to sell for you. So the rest of the category is good, but herself is not good, right? I would rather run like this guy. Right? Like the STR cooler. Because there you go. I'm still getting 170% Transformation Boost lead, and then this card's probably better than the Kale, in my opinion. Maybe you're towing the line there. But if this guy is going to be run along a lot of the best Transformation Boost units in the game, he is certainly going to look better than the Kale, because the Kale isn't going to be getting helped out by any of those units, whereas this unit may. So yeah, I don't know. I think it really depends on a lot of the units that are released alongside these characters, right? So that was the Boo. And then beyond that, we go into the Golden Week celebration, and we get the Dual Dokkan Fest from the World's Strongest Goku and Piccolo Jr. Giant form. Now, this was an amazing celebration. Very, very hype. Very strong releases. Dokkan absolutely won here. Now, the community, again, did not think that this celebration was hype. People don't like Dragon Ball. People don't like World Tournament. People just want to see blue fusions. And because this wasn't that, everyone was like, whatever, snooze, didn't care. It's insane. They're so good. They're some of the best Dokkan Fests that they've ever released. I don't get why people didn't think these are the most amazing thing ever, right? Okay, and then we go straight into LR Bulma. Which, okay, man, I am starting to realize some of this on my own here. So then we go into LR Bulma, who, again, amazing card. This is like a restrictionless unit. You could throw her on any team that she's on, and she just performs absolutely amazingly. She is one of, if not the best unit in the game. People didn't like it because it's a Bulma. I just don't understand that argument. I don't get it. And then we go into the Turles celebration. And again, it's a mid, kind of not hype unit, because it's an extreme class movie boss character. Usually these are the lesser of hype releases. And then this guy also isn't like absolutely amazing. He is a bit restricted. And, you know, the fact that he only is able to get his entrance animation, which is a huge portion of his kit, against super class enemies. Or actually, it has to be a Goku's family enemy. So, yeah, it's very, very restricted to be able to get that. And, you know, that hurts this guy a lot. Because, again, the relevant content is Red Zone, which is all extreme class enemies and stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. They definitely... I mean, I'm definitely realizing here they did not perform as well so far in the 8th year that they had in the 7th year, but I think that goes strictly from talking about the hype of the releases. If you're talking about the power level of these releases, it is very, very closely mirrored to what we've been doing in the 7th anniversary. A lot of these characters are really, really viable. Some of these characters are extremely powerful, and people just don't want to admit that they have that power because they're not a hype character. And I think that is very, very unfair to Dokkan. So, you know, Dokkan, if you want the community to stop sweating so hard and just calm down and take a chill pill a little bit, then it's time to release some Saiyan cards. It's time to release some fusions. It has been a long time since we have had any good fusions in the game, and people are starving for it at this point, I can definitely tell. So, yeah, in fact, I'm kind of curious about this. I want to know, when's the last time they released... I mean, I suppose it's 7th anniversary. This is like the last release for Fusions cards, right? Let's go on to the Fusion team. Oh, or actually, I meant to go on the Fuse Fighter team. Hold on. Fuse fighters. There we go. Yeah, so the latest really, I mean, we had LR Piccolo. Yeah, it's kind of like looking really outdated at this point. But as far as like the actual like Gogetas and Vegetos, right? We haven't had any new ones since the 7th anniversary. Yeah, so we could definitely use some buffs in the fusion area, and I think people will stop finally complaining if we do it. So please, Dokkan, please. All right, so that is everything that I wanted to rant about today. I just wanted to get out my full opinions about the meta of the game and the health of the game. And I think if you want this game to be healthy for you, then it is wise to find use for every unit in your box. It is wise to see the positive in this game and just understand that there is plenty of different things that you can be doing with the game. And if you are upset that they released Turles, who isn't perfect for the Sin Shenron fight, then hey, why don't you go get every EZA stage to level 999? Because you haven't done that, and there's plenty of other units besides Turles that are necessary for game modes like that. So the very final thing that I want to do here is give you guys a comment goal. So comment in the comments below your favorite unit that you think is underrated by the community. So the one that I think, for me, my selection is LR, Broly, Chile, and Lemo. This is a really, really fun unit. I actually just released a video using them and showing off the power that they have with this ability where they are able to evade enemies' attacks guaranteed with 7 or more key spheres obtained. They've also got a very, very interesting support type passive depending on, the key spheres that you select will depend on the support type buff they get. Super interesting kit. And they have been massively buffed with the Bond of Friendship category and Power of Wishes category being added to their kit in the 8th year of the game, as well as the Join Forces category being massively buffed and a relevant team that you can run nowadays. So yeah, this is a really, really fun unit that I think a lot of people sleep on. This is my personal pick. So let me know what your pick is down below in the comments. A unit that you use that you think other people shit on way too much. Give hype to the underdog units for me. Go ahead and do it. So that is going to do it for this one, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.